Yeah. Okay, we're in
Gimel
Gimel Ches.
Ches. Whenever he brings proof, he can overrun the verdict. If they said to him, produce any proofs you have within 30 days, if he finds evidence within 30 days, he can overturn the verdict. After 30 days, he cannot overturn it. So, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said, what should this man do if he could not find evidence within 30 days, but found after 30 days? If they said to him, bring witnesses, and he said, I have no witnesses, or they said, bring evidence, and he said, I have no evidence, and subsequently he brought evidence or witnesses, it is nothing. Shimon ben Gamliel says, what should this man do if he did not know at the time that he had witnesses and later discovered witnesses, or he didn't know he had at that time evidence and he found evidence? If they said to him, bring witnesses, and he said, I have no witnesses, bring proof, and he said, I have no proof. And when he saw that he was about to be judged liable, he said, let so and so and so and so approach and testify for me, or he took out evidence from his belt, it is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Both civil cases and capital cases require inquiry and examination, as it is stated. One judgment you shall have for yourselves. What is the difference between civil cases and capital cases? Civil cases are tried by 3, capital cases by 23. Civil cases open with a consideration of either acquittal or liability. Capital cases must open with the consideration of acquittal, not guilt. Civil cases are decided by a majority of 1, whether for acquittal or liability, and capital cases are decided by a majority of 1 for acquittal, but by a majority for 2 for guilt. Civil decisions may be reversed in favor of acquittal or liability, and capital decisions may be reversed only in favor of acquittal, but not in favor of guilt. In civil cases, anyone may argue either for acquittal or liability. In capital cases, anyone may argue for acquittal, but not everyone may argue for guilt. In civil cases, one who argued for acquittal may argue for liability, and one who argues for liability may argue for acquittal. In capital cases, one who argues for guilt may argue for acquittal, but one who argues for acquittal may not argue for guilt. Civil cases are tried by day and may be concluded by night. Capital cases must be tried by day and concluded by day. Civil cases may be concluded on that day, whether for acquittal or liability. Capital cases may be concluded on that day for acquittal, but only on the following day for guilt. Therefore, trials are not held on Friday or on the day before a festival. In judging cases of Tumah and Tahara, they begin from the most eminent. In capital cases, they begin from the side. All are eligible to judge civil cases, but not all are eligible to judge capital cases. Only Kohanim, Leviim, and Yisraelim who are eligible to have their daughters marry Kohan.
Okay. All right. Now, the shape of the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin it was like a half of a threshing floor. So basically a semicircle. They sat in a semicircle so that everyone could see the people sitting in the middle.
Okay.
Okay. And there were 2 scribes of the judges who stood in front of them. One on the left and one on the right. And they would write down both the words of those who were arguing in favor of acquittal and those who were arguing in favor of conviction. Rabbi Yehuda Mer Shlosha. No, there were 3, says Rabbi Yehuda. Echad kosev divrei mazakin, echad kosev divrei mechayvin, v'ashlishi kosev divrei mazakin v'divrei mechayvin. So one was only for writing arguments in favor of acquittal, one was only for writing arguments in favor of conviction, and one was writing both. Okay, halacha follows the Tana Kama here. What is there? Is there a reason why he felt that you couldn't have? I think it seems like Rabbi Yehuda's reason is because of the tircha.
Mm-hmm.
Because of having to write down all of the things, it's easier to be more medayek if you have one person only writing those who argue in favor of acquittal, so that he's writing down much more thoroughly the things that are in favor of acquittal, and the other one's writing much more thoroughly things in favor of conviction. Okay. Okay. Mishna Daled. Shalosh Shuros Shel Talmidei Chachamim Yoshvin Lifneihem. So there were 3 rows of scholars of Talmidei Chachamim who were sitting in front of them. And they knew their places because there was a distinct ranking system as who's the senior scholar, who's senior to whom, and they and there's a reason that they need to be in that particular order. If they had to give lismoch, in other words, to appoint a new dayan to join on the Sanhedrin, for example, if one of the existing members died, you need to replace him. So then what do? They take tzomchin min harishona. So they take the first guy in the first row. He gets promoted to the Sanhedrin. Echad min hashniya ba'alo larishona. And then they shift up places. Everyone shifts up the one place, and somebody from the second row moves into the first row. Echad min hashlishis ba'alo lashniya. And then the third guy from the third row comes into the second row. And then they find the next guy who hasn't from the general populace of Talmidim, who they think is ready to be promoted to the benches, and he's promoted into the third row. He doesn't sit in the place that was just vacated by the guy who moved out of the third row. Rather, everyone else scoots up a chair, and he sits in the most junior seat. Okay. Hey, so we already saw what happens when they're cautioning the witnesses before they testify in monetary cases, and it's a lot more serious when they're testifying in capital cases. So they would bring them in, and ma'aymin will threaten, will caution them. Okay, Shema Tomru me omid. They say, listen, don't. We're concerned you might be saying something from estimation, that you're just making a good educated guess, umishmua, or that you're saying it from what you heard. Aid me pi aid. Even if you heard it from somebody else reliable, or mi pi adam neman shaman, or we heard it from somebody that we trust. Or shema I atem yodim shesofenu livdok eschem bedresha v'chakira. Or maybe you're not aware that we're going to give you a hard time. We're going to test you very hard with the drisha and chakira about all of your testimony. You must know it's not the same thing as civil litigation over here. Okay, so a person can give over the money if he testified falsely, then he just has to hand over the money, and he's got his kapara. If you have somebody executed who does not deserve to be executed, then he and all of his would have been descendants till the end of time are going to have a taina on you. We see about Cain who killed his brother. Your brother's blood is crying out from the ground. It's talking not dam is not in the singular, it's in the plural. Damo b'dam zari yosav. In other words, his blood and the blood of his descendants. Davar acher. Demei achicha shehaya damo mushlach al ha'etzim v'al ha'avanim. And since we're talking about drushes on demei achicha, the other thing that's the other drusha that comes out of it is that it's the blood that his blood was splattered on the sticks and the stones. Right, he didn't. So the commentary here says that Cain didn't know how to kill Hevel, so he was hitting him with sticks first, and afterwards with stones. So there was lots of blood involved. I'm not sure why this is necessary to know, but anyway, lefichach nivra adam yechidi, and that is why God created just one person. Lamdach shekol hama'abed nefesh achas miYisrael male alav hakasav ki'ilu ibed olam male. That if somebody causes a single person to be killed, then Hashem considers it as if he's destroyed an entire world, because our entire world is populated from the descendants of one man. And a person who saved a single life is like he has saved an entire world. And also because of peace among people, that nobody can claim, oh, I've got more illustrious ancestors than you do, because we all come from the same forefather. And so that the minim could not say that there are lots of different powers in Shemayim. Each one created a different person. It all came from one person. And also to testify to the greatness of Hashem. Because a person can take a coin and mint lots of different coins, but all the coins that he makes are coming out of his mold look the same to each other. Every human being comes out from the basic genetics of Adam Arishon. And yeah, it's and yet we all have such vastly distinct looks. And therefore every single person must look at himself and say, the whole world could have been created for me. And what does that mean? I have to be careful of sinning, because I should not destroy my world. Okay. And now coming back to our witnesses. Okay, so you've heard all the terrible side about what goes wrong if you're going to testify falsely. So now the witnesses are going to say, "Oh, what do we want with all this? All we're hearing is tsaris if we mess this up and somebody let's just not testify." Halo kvar nemar b'hu aid or ra'a or yada im lo yagid. There's an isser for a person who knows a testimony and not to say it. And why should we? So, but still, ultimately our testimony is going to end up in this guy being executed. So why should we have the responsibility of his blood on our heads? But the pasuk says that when somebody deserves to be executed, it's a simcha when they actually do get executed. So, okay, Baba Basra, Yud Vav.
If someone's loan document was erased, witnesses attest to it, and he comes before the court and they draw up a validation. The document of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, was erased on such and such date, and so-and-so were his witnesses. If one paid part of his debt, Rabbi Yehuda says he should exchange the document. Rabbi Yehuda says he should write a receipt. He said Rabbi Yehuda, the result is needing to safeguard his receipt for the mice. Rabbi Yossi said to him, it is fitting for him, so this one's position is not impaired. If there were two brothers, one poor and one wealthy, and the father left a bathhouse or an olive press, if he made them for renting, the rent is divided. If he made them for themselves, the wealthy one could say to the poor one, acquire servants and let them bathe in the bathhouse, acquire olives and come process them in the olive press. Two people in the same town, both named Yosef and Shimon, cannot produce a document of indebtedness against each other, nor can one produce a document of indebtedness against them. If one is found among his documents, a receipt stating the notes of Joseph and Shimon is paid. Both their notes are treated as paid. What should they do? They should record the third generation as if they were third generation. If they were identical for 3 generations, they should write a description. If they were alike, they should write Kohanim. If someone said to his son, one of my notes is paid, but I do not know which, all the notes are paid. If 2 notes from one person were found, the larger one is treated as paid, and the smaller one is treated as considered paid. One who lends to another through a guarantor may not can collect from the guarantor. If he said, on condition that I can collect from whomever I wish, I may collect from the guarantor. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said, in either case, if the borrower has property, he may not collect from the guarantor. Similarly, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said, if one was the guarantor of a woman's ketubah and her husband was divorcing her, he must now vow not to derive any further benefit from her, to prevent them from plotting against this one's property and then remarry. Okay.
One more.
Yep. One who lends another money with a document collects the mortgage properties. What witnesses? He collects only from available properties. If he produces a handwritten note that he indebted to him, he collects only one from available properties. If a guarantor appears below the document signature, he collects only from available properties. A case came before Rabbi Yisrael, and he said he collects only from the available properties. Renatus said to him, he collects neither from mortgage properties nor available properties. He said to him, why? And he said to him, if someone was choking someone in the room, in the street, and another counted him and said, let him alone, he is exempt because he did not lend due to his trust in him. Rather, which is the guarantor who is liable? And he said, lend him, and I will give you if he is liable because he sent him due to his trust on him. So Rebbe Shmuel, one who wishes to become wise should involve himself in the study of monetary laws, as there is no branch of Torah greater than them, because they are like a welling fountain. And one who wishes to involve himself in monetary laws should serve Shimon ben Nanas. Okay.
Cool.
Question on the first group of Mishnahs. It says that they can only do that. Not a civil case. It can only be tried by day, not by. Can't go into the night. Right? We had that. Now you're looking at me like
Sorry, say that again. Yeah.
We had the thing that not a civil case, but the other cases, he had it was being judged. It could only be the case had to be done by day, started in the morning and finished by day. What is the reason?
No, because it's finished the next day. They have to sleep on it. If it's and that's only if it's for if they're going to be mechayev, because before you pass a judgment to execute a person, you've got to sleep on it.
This is on capital cases, not civil. Capital cases must be tried by day and concluded by day.
Yeah, but the next day.
It's the next day. I wish
that's what it's referring to. We'll see later on in Sanhedrin when they are going to end up convicting a person. There are a whole bunch of other hanhagas that they have to have because it's a very grave thing that they're doing. And therefore they do have to sleep on it and come back in and see have they found any other mitigating circumstances that might let them off the hook.
It would have been much easier if they said the next day instead of just by day. What we finished with Baba Basra now?
Yes, then on to Sanhedrin again, yeah.
Okay. Well, right now we're on to where are we? We're on to Baba Metzia. Test Jud Gimel. One who lends his neighbor may not exact security from him except in court, nor may he enter his house to take his security. As it is said, you shall stand outside. If he has 2 utensils, you may take one and leave one. If he must return the pillow by night and the plowshare by day, if he dies, he need not return it to his heirs. Rabbi Shimon the Gamaliel says, even to the debtor himself, he need only return it up to 30 days. After 30 days, he sells them in court. We may not exact security from a widow, whether she be poor or rich, and as it is said, and you shall not take as security the garment of a widow. One who takes a mill as security transgresses negative commandment, and he is guilty of taking 2 utensils, as it is said, he shall not take lower millstones or an upper millstone as security. He does not speak only of the lower millstone and the upper millstone, but of anything with which food for human consumption is prepared, as it is said, and he takes away a life of security. If a ground floor and an upper floor belonging to 2 different people collapse, the 2 of them divide the wood, the stones, the earth, and they determine which stones are likely to have been broken. If one of them recognizes some of the stones, he takes them, and they are counted for him in the reckoning. If a ground floor and an upper floor belong to 2 people, and the upper floor partially fell in, the owner of the ground floor does not wish to make repairs. The occupant of the upper floor may go and live downstairs until he repairs the upper story for him. Rabbi Yossi says the downstairs one supplies the ceiling, and the upstairs one the plaster. Okay.
All right, get in, Dalad Hay.
Okay. Dalad Hay. One who has a half sleeve and a half sleeve. One who has a half slave and a half free works for 1 day for his master and 1 day for himself. These are the words of Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai said to them, you have provided a solution for his master, but for him himself you have not provided a solution. He cannot marry a slave because he is half free, and he cannot marry a free woman because she is half slave. Shall he remain idle? But was not the word created for propagation? And it says, created it not a waste, it formed it to be inhabited. Rather, for the sake of the general good, his master is compelled to free him, and he writes a bond for half his value. Subsequently, Metzila retracted and taught in accordance with the words of Beis Shammai. If one sells a slave to a Gentile or to someone outside Eretz Israel, he goes free. Captives may not be redeemed for more than their value for the sake of the general good, and captives may not be helped to escape. For the sake of the general good, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamaliel says, for the benefit of the captives, Torah scrolls, phylacteries, and mezuzos may not be brought from Gentiles for more than their value for the sake of the general good. One who divorces his wife because of a bad reputation may not take her back because of a netter. He may not take her back, may not take her back. Rabbi Yehuda says, if it because of a netter which was known to the public, he may not take her back. But if it was a netter that known to the public, he may take her back. Rameya says, if he divorced her because of any netter which requires the inquiry of a sage, he may not take her back. But if because of a netter which does not require the inquiry of a sage, he may take her back. Rabbi Eliezer said they prohibited this only because of her other the other. Said Rabbi Yossi ben Yehuda. It occurred in Sidon that one said to his wife, Kohanim, if I do not divorce you, and he divorced her, and the sages allowed him to take her back for the sake of the general good.
Okay. Sukkah base Dalit.
Okay. If one makes a sukkah between the trees and the trees serve as its wall, it's valid. If those who are engaged in the performance of a mitzvah are exempt from the mitzvah of sukkah, ill people and their attendants are exempt from the mitzvah of sukkah. We may eat and drink casually outside the sukkah. Once they brought Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai some cooked food to taste, and to Rabbi Gamliel they brought 2 dates and a pail of water, and they said, "Bring them up to the sukkah." And when he gave them to Reb Tzadok, when they gave Reb Tzadok food smaller than the volume of an egg, he took it with a cloth and ate it outside the sukkah, and did not recite the benediction after it. Rabbi Eliezer says a man is obligated to be 14 meals in the sukkah, 1 for each day and 1 for each night. But the comments say the matter has no fixed obligation except for the night of the first Yom Tov of the festival only. Rabbi Eliezer further stated whoever did not eat in the sukkah on the night of the first Yom Tov must compensate for the night of the last Yom Tov. But the sages say this matter has no compensation. About this matter, it is said, a twisted thing cannot be made straight, and what is not there cannot be numbered.
Okay. Brachos base Zion.
He bathed on the first night following the death of his wife. His disciples asked him, "Did you not teach us?"
Base Zion. Base Zion is Tavi.
I'm sorry, the one before. And when Tavi, his slave, died, he accepted the condolences for him. His disciples said to him, "Have you not taught us, O Rabbi, that one does not accept condolences for slaves?" He said to them, "My slave Tavi was not like the rest of the slaves. He was a worthy, kosher person." A bridegroom may recite the Shema the first night if he wishes. Rabbi Gamliel said, "Not everyone who wishes to assume the name may assume it." One who is dead lies before him is exempt from reading the Shema and from tefillah and tefillin. The pallbearers and the replacements and the replacements of the replacements, these going before the coffin and after the coffin, those that are needed for the coffin are exempt, and those that are not needed for the beer are obliged. Those are exempt from tefillah.
Okay. And finally, Tamid Aleph Gimel.
Yeah. And Tamid. Aleph Gimel. He took the key and opened the minor door and entered from the hall of the fire into the courtyard. The Kohanim entered behind them with 2 torches of fire in their hands, and they would split into 2 groups. These walked in the colonnade toward the east, and these walked in the colonnade toward the west. They would check as they walked until they reached the place of preparation of the kavitim. The 2 groups met one another and would say, "It is well, it is well." They appointed makers of kavitim to make the kavitim. The one chosen to remove ash from the altar would go to remove the ash, and they would say to him, "Be careful not to touch the utensil until you sanctify your hands and free from the laver." And behold, the shovel is placed in the corner between the ramp and the altar west of the ramp. No person entered with him, and there was no lamp in his hand. Rather, he walked by the light of the fire. The Kohanim neither saw him nor heard the sound of his footsteps until they heard the sound of the footsteps that Ben Katan fashioned to a wheel for the laver, that they would say, "The time has come." He sanctified his hands and feet from the laver, and he took the silver shovel and ascended to the top of the altar and cleared the coals to this side and to that side, and then scooped from the innermost consumed coals. And he descended. When he reached the floor, he would turn his face to the north. He would walk to the east of the ramp about 10 amos. He piled the coals upon the floor at a distance of 3 handbreadths from the ramp, the place where they would deposit the crop of the bird altar and the ashes of the inner altar and of the menorah. His fellows saw him descend, and they came running. and hastily sanctified their hands and their feet from the water of the laver. They took the shovels and the forks and ascended to the top of the altar, and the limbs of the fats that were not consumed during the night, the Kohanim removed them onto the sides of the altar. If the sides do not hold the sacrificial parts, they arranged it the opposite of the ledge on the ramp.
Okay. That's it. Okay.
Tomorrow we start